Yo. What's up, everybody? Welcome. Robin, hello. Ash, hello. Holly, what's up? Natalia. What's up, guys? Light's darkness, you beat cancer. Hell yeah. Let's get a exclamation point in the chat for that one. Shit. Joel Salvador, you're depressed you can't get a husky? Can't afford it? Well, now's the time to save. Maybe you can do a GoFundMe. Gothic, what's up? Yeah, I missed you guys too. It's been a busy week. Did I drink the bathwater? I did not drink the bathwater, though I was very tempted to, and get AIDS. But it's going. And Nellie Gray, happy birthday. Guys, it's good to be back in my comfort zone. As you are aware, I was gone for a bit of time in Anaheim, California for VidCon. So if anybody has any questions about my experiences there, I'd be more than happy to talk about them and all that kind of stuff, because I had a great time. I was with quite a few YouTubers. Some you guys might know. Two of the ones that I was meeting were Blame It on George and That Creepy Reading were the main folks that I was meeting there. George, or Jorge, whatever you prefer to call him, he was actually from that area, so he was able to drive and meet us places or take us around town and stuff, which was great. Me, Creepy is from Michigan. I'm from Pennsylvania. And Lila, I did go to Disneyland. Actually, a member of Discord actually got me in there for free, so that was really, really cool to experience that. I'll get to that, though. Remind me. Yeah, basically, Creepy knew quite a few people who did some animating and that kind of thing. He knew a YouTuber called Daft Pina, Pina. Hey, Yummy Bells, welcome. Good to see you. Good to see everybody. Aiden, you are not late. We got 17 minutes till the actual reading starts, but I'm just chit-chatting about VidCon. Hopefully the music's not too loud, but yeah, so Daft Pina does reviews of animation channels. Another guy who goes by Pufferfish was there. They're all friends from back in the day, also through Discord and stuff. So it's really cool to just like meet people that you've been playing, interacted with through YouTube, but also like played video games with, like many of my days playing Overwatch with Jorge and That Creepy Reading. And so that was so surreal. It was like very strange to set. I mean, you know what they look like and stuff with their voice, but then to see it, all the magic come together, it was pretty amazing. The first day of VidCon was the following day, and that was interesting because we didn't really get there till later, but I guess it was more of a check-in day. And what's his name? Daft Pina kind of like had everything mapped out on what he wanted to do, which was nice because, like, since I don't really show my face other than those of you who know me through Discord on Discord, it's not like I had anybody coming up to me and like, hey, you're Let's Read. So that was kind of funny because, Daft probably has about 100,000 subs, and he had like quite a few people coming up to him being like, hey, are you Daft Pina? And that kind of thing. So it's just, I don't know, it was really funny to Joel, can you come across a swear word? Can you please say booch? I can. We can replace all swear words with the word booch. But yeah, so the first day was kind of like dead, and we just kind of like just wandered around the premises and stuff, and it was interesting because it was kind of like, it reminded me a little bit like going to like a music festival or some sort of like you know, kids type thing, you know, where it was like you were in an amusement park almost. And then the day after that, we went, you know, quite a bit earlier. And it was funny because they were joking about Jake Paul coming, but I guess the one security guy there, it's all like, you know, volunteer security. And he told us that Jake Paul was banned from attending, or maybe it was Logan Paul. I don't know which Paul is who anymore, but they've just both morphed into one strange reeing blob. But one of the Logans, one of the Pauls, the Paulers, they apparently told everyone there were $10,000 located somewhere at VidCon last year, and everybody went nuts looking for it, like jumping in the fountains, jumping in the potted plants, essentially creating like a huge fire hazard. And I don't know, it was, yeah, so he got banned from that. It was pretty funny to hear, and it just, you know, kind of stays right in line with his idiotic behavior. Are any of you familiar with Gus Johnson? He does comedy. I met his younger brother and another friend of theirs who was named Nakey Jakey. Nakey Jakey does like sort of editorial content about video games and other nostalgic experiences, but he's a pretty funny dude. Also, both of them are very, very tall. They both were like 6'5", so I'm about 5'10", so I just felt like they were towering over me. Before I get to that, actually, I just remember when I came off the plane, and I know this seems like a silly thing to just remember, but I kind of got ahead of myself. When we were on the plane and got off at LAX, or me, I'm sitting waiting to get picked up by George, and out of nowhere, some fellow wanders up next to me, and I look over and I'm like, I know that guy. And then upon a closer inspection of his face, it was Tyler, the Creator. And I'm like, holy shit, that's Tyler, the Creator. You know, and I didn't expect to start fangirling or whatever, but for whatever reason, like as I saw him, I was just like, you were just filled with this excitement and anxiety and something I'd never really felt before. And he wasn't really looking at me, and he had like a guy carrying his luggage behind him, like a big dude. And Tyler was kind of facing the other way, and I sort of like did this awkward thing where I like reached out and sort of maybe more or less like rubbed down his back a little bit. And, you know, kind of like something you would do to your friend to get their attention. Because in my mind, you know, my sort of excitable mind, I was like, I know so much about this guy. He clearly has to know about me, but obviously not at all. So like, as I did that, the guy carrying his luggage was like, whoa, nah bro, you know, and I'm just like, Tyler turns around kind of confused and sees me, and I'm like, hey Tyler, how's it going, you know, and go to like, you know, how do you do there, like shaking his hand and stuff, and it was just funny because he like, you know, he shook my hand, but it was kind of like, oh, what's up, bro, you know, like he was like, he didn't even make eye contact with me, just kind of like looked beyond me, like, oh, what's up, bro, like, you know, like clearly he gets that like 100,000 times a day probably, so he's just like, oh yeah, just another weirdo. So I shook Tyler, the Creator's hand, and then he wandered off across the street into the great abyss somewhere. So that was neat, and that was just a really interesting like first start to my experience in LA. Yeah, I shot my shot, that's for sure. And yeah, so anyways, fast forward to back to VidCon, the second day. Yeah, saw Nakey Jakey, super nice guy. Gus Johnson's younger brother was super nice. they were just, I know that there's not really, like, when people come up to you, it's like they're probably, a little bit used to that, and there's not a whole lot to talk about, but I was just kind of picking their brain about different stuff and making jokes and stuff, and they were really fun. I asked them, where Gus is or whatever, and I guess, Gus was filming something for Comedy Central. You hope I'll raid Area 51. Hey, I'm signed up for that Area 51 raid, and if I can get even just a fraction of my subscribers, they can't stop all of us. That's all I have to say. How long does it take to make a scary story comp? So the last one was, it doesn't take that long because it's like just for the I'm kind of promoting my my podcast. So like the compilation of audio goes onto the podcast, and then once a month I will promote the podcast on here. And usually those videos do well too, to kind of reach new people and then also get other people that are newer to the channel. And it gives me, like, since I was gone, like I had people fill in for me, but also like that helps like kind of give me a buffer day to get my stuff together before I can start, recording again, which is what I'm doing tonight with the camping stories. So I'm stoked about that. I'm happy to be back. I'm happy to interact with you guys, and I hope you didn't mind. I hope you showed some love to those narrators that stood in for me while I was gone. Mortis Media and Horror Stories from the Clown, which I think he should just change his name to the Clown, because Horror Stories from the Clown it's a little bit of a breath to say everything. Yeah, after we raid, I'm getting an alien to read a story. But yeah, ran into Nakey Jakey and stuff. But I also got to meet. I felt bad. There was supposed to be a horror narrators like meetup. I don't even know who was going to be there. I guess it was going to be what's his name, Zach from like CSZ World or CZS World. He does a lot of like 100 Things You Missed in the new Chucky trailer or something of that nature. Reject 679 with the $1. Thank you. But I unfortunately missed him because I got the day wrong and did not end up showing up at the, Baskin Robbins or wherever it is we were supposed to meet. Cat's Kingdom, welcome. Good to see you back. Mark, my podcast name is called the Let's Read Podcast. I need to start advertising that a lot more, to be honest, like over top of the videos, because I don't think a lot of people know that it exists, and I think it's very helpful for people who have limited data and don't want to like play YouTube videos in the background. And it also, like, they're 3-hour compilations, so usually you can get caught up on things and stuff. Kylie Wentz, sorry if I got that wrong, with the 5 Canadian maple syrup doll hair says, say this tongue twister. 1-1 was a racehorse, 2-2 was 1-2. 1-1-1-1 race, 2-2-1-1-2. Yes, I know this was off topic. That's okay. I like a good tongue twister. A friend of mine there was teaching me some tongue twisters, rolling the R's. Rodriguez. And I am not good at that. My podcast is on Spotify. It is on Apple Podcasts. So yeah, there you go. Gothic Rose linked it for you there to Apple and Spotify. So those are the two main ones. I believe there's a few others there depending on what you consume. But you got 6 minutes to talk all about what's it called? VidCon. Yeah, it was fun, man. It was a lot of good times, and met a lot of good people, ate a lot of good food. The second to last night, well, I'll talk about Disney World real quick. A really awesome subscriber, was kind enough to get me into Disney and George and Creepy for free. So that was really, really cool. Pig Body Gaming with the 10 says, much love from PA. I appreciate all the content. Absolutely. That's where I'm from. And Kylie Wiens with the 5 says, yay, good job. And you said my last name correct the first try. Oh, that's good. I'm never sure if I get people's names right on here. But we went to Disneyland. And holy crap, that place is so cool. Like, such an awesome place. Funnily enough, parents seem to get very, very angry in Disneyland. We were on the tram into Disneyland, and my buddy, That Creepy Reading, he's kind of a bit of a loud, boisterous fellow. Very, very funny, though. Really funny guy. And some of the shit that he says is just so off the wall, especially in public. And he was just saying something so excessively loud, but it was just funny. And then all of a sudden this mom was just like, excuse me, can you please stop talking? Like, I need to hear what's said over the announcements. And it was just funny because, I mean, obviously the tram has nothing like important to say at all, you know, but it was just so funny to see like somebody like get frustrated with him, and then him saying like a lot of like hilarious stuff, and then just watching other people's reactions and stuff. It was really good. Oh my gosh. Anthony Esposito is here, and he is back with the $50 right out the gate. Says, what is up? Anthony, we are just chit-chat. Thank you, first off. Thank you so much. We are just chatting about VidCon for another 4 minutes or so, but obviously I will continue as we're reading stories to kind of go into things as it comes to me, or anything, any questions you guys might ask and that kind of thing. But thank you, Anthony. I feel very welcome back now. Jen Child says, irony, the no sleep Disney has me boycotting Disneyland. Yeah, there was, we kept joking that somewhere around there was the disembodied head of Walt Disney giving orders, or like we were just saying like how he like flies, like a hologram of him like flies over top of in like a drone or something like that, and like, make sure you smile, be happy. Susanna Armour with a 5. Aussie Buck says, love your stories. Thank you, Susanna. Thank you for the 5er. But man, it was a good time. Also, these beats here, if you're wondering, they are from Chilled Cow. Just rocking those in the background, and one of my favorite lo-fi hip-hop channels to go to. But yeah, so it was really funny because then later we were in the bathroom. I'm taking a whiz facing in the direction of the urinal, and you know, I hear this like Bostonian accent, and Mickey, do I hear baby? Crying in the background. We'll get to him later. This Bostonian accent says, hey, you mind moving? You know, to That Creepy Reading. And Creepy's just like, oh, of course, pardon me, good sir. Nice pink pants, by the way. And I don't know if he like came off as, you know, pretentious and stuff. But then the guy was just like, you know, I could say, fuck you, move. And then it was just so funny because like as soon as I heard like threatening words of like, fuck you, move, my like pee stream literally just instinctually stops midstream going, you know. And I'm just like, wait a second. And like as he says that, I don't even know why I said this, but I was just like, something ridiculous just popped in my head. So I was just like, in the Bostonian accent, I'm like, yeah, you could say fuck you, move, like not facing him or whatever. And I just thought it must have been really weird from his perspective to like start a mild confrontation with some guy, and then to hear one of his friends like sort of returning that, you know, to him, but standing in the urinal. So like he seemed like he was confused, and then started to walk away even though I didn't look. And then like his son of all people were just like, did something happen, Dad? And he's just like, yeah, just a bunch of fucking assholes. And so that was really funny just to like chime in like out of a movie, like, yeah, you could say fuck you, move. I don't know, it was so stupid. It was really funny though. Mannequin of Chaos, sorry, Mannequino with a 5 says, sup Zadinator, glad you went to VidCon. Thank you. Your Zadinator has returned, safe and sound. Natalia with the 10 says, get Pradeep. We miss him too. Yeah, where is he? It's been real hot for him, so he might be out in the living room. Slapnuts with the 5 says, so people know what your face looks like. I'm curious. They do. If you go into our Discord, which maybe one of the mods can link. Oh, yes. Gothic Rose did link that. Thank you. And you go to the selfies. It's one of the pinned images there. So you got to click at the top, like, see pinned messages. There's quite a bit of content available for you to consume and create a 3D render of my face if you so need it. Oh yes, first 20 minutes I just chat about what's on my mind, but so just real quick to finish off the Disneyland experience, later in the night I was hanging with my friend outside of this one area that, it's kind of like a little bit of a river looking over, I guess, like a mountainside type thing, and they do this amazing, like, everything at Disney is just like over the top. It's so freaking sweet. And like they do this amazing light show, and with the water, it's like a big orchestra, kind of like Fantasia or something like that. And some dad, carrying like a nice sleeping young boy, like could have been 3 or 4, over his shoulder, was like, went and like sat down, but he sat down kind of like in front of us. And I didn't care because I couldn't really see anyways, and there was only so much to see or whatever, and I'm 29 watching Disney shit, like whatever. And like but then this one dad who was like a fucking bear, he's just like, are you fucking kidding me? And like the one dad holding his kid like slowly turns around, and he's like, he sounds like he's Dutch or like from France or something. He's like, excuse me? And he's like, you're just gonna fucking sit right in my fucking view? Like super threatening to this like other dad, and like the dad like holding his kid who's sleeping on him. It's just like, okay, no problems, and like moves slightly, and he's like, is this okay here? And he's like, and the dad didn't say anything, and it was just really funny because this huge bear of a dad is sitting next to like his wife, and his son is sleeping kind of on the chair in his wife's lap, and it was just man, it was so funny like to see like the wife's. I figured the wife's reaction would be like, Gerald, would you calm down? But she was just like sitting there, like kind of like petting, gently stroking her baby, like, this is just daddy's, this is just his baseline. He's just a little peeved. He's had a long day. But yeah, he truly was an a-hole. But it was just so funny to see like Disney. I want to say Disney honestly turns people, like especially parents, into some raving jerks, because man, that was really funny to watch. It just seemed like everybody, especially at the end of the day, was like, we've been walking like literally 30 miles today and my kid is still crying that he didn't get to see Mickey. Oh yeah, it was so funny. A big explosion happened in front of Mickey, and the parents that were next to me, the little girl literally thought Mickey got blown into pieces. So she starts bawling because she had to make sure that Mickey was okay. So that was really, really cute. Crap, I didn't get any water. Let me go grab water real quick. And then we will begin reading spooky stories, and I can also talk more about VidCon as we go. Alrighty. Aunt Cynthia with the $2. Thank you, Aunt Cynthia. Not blown to pieces. Sorry. That's every Mickey, every show has to sacrifice his life. Do alien stories for Area 51. Dude, we're storming that shit. I don't even care. I love all the memes. Like some guy had one of those like sticky, things that are on a rope, but the rope is like sticky and it's got like a green hand. And it's like attached to his steering wheel, and it says like, my alien driving me home from Area 51. or like what was the one? Life after or relationships after 25. Relationships options for men who are single after 25. And it was, I gotta find that one. That's actually hilarious. Yeah, well, you can find it. It's funny. But I had a great time. I'm honestly kind of riding a bit of a high from this experience because it was like, I don't know, it was so fun. Like, it was just so fun to be around like creative minds. It was so fun to be around like really good energy and stuff like that. Just great people in general, and just like a really exciting kind of thing. Like, oh, you're triggered because we're not blowing up you, Mickey. We're blowing up Mickey Mouse, which I guess you guys are. Are you guys interchangeable? I always forget. Alright, I'm going to switch over to Iron Cthulhu Apocalypse, who will set the spooky tones. Need to catch up on your meme reviews. Yeah, Area 51's got a lot of good memes. Oh, shit. I'm going to ASMR fill up this water. Okay. Or I could spill it all over the floor. Alright, perfect. I spilled that everywhere. Meme review. Oh my god. Anthony is back at it. He says, Anthony with 100 buckarones. Holy shit. My birthday was yesterday, blacked out. We did have a conversation on voice chat, but about how you were good looking. Thank you. Thank you. Anthony, holy crap. Thank you for $100. I feel like I should be the opposite if it was your birthday, but happy belated birthday to you, and I hope we can make this stream. I hope it can cure your blackout. I hope you're not currently blacked out. But I definitely saw more than a few YouTube individuals blacking out at the party that I went to, so that was kind of funny. Miss Molly with the $3 says, glad you had a good time and glad you're back. Thank you. Yeah, it does feel good to be back. It's very, like I said, I'm riding a high, but it's like being in LA is interesting. It's definitely a lot better energy overall with the people than it is in like New York City, where New York is kind of like, I don't want to say New York is toxic because it's not always, but like you kind of have to be on your feet, quite literally and metaphorically. There, and the energy from people can sometimes be a little soul-sucking with how claustrophobic it is. And LA is nice because the traffic's not great, but it's a lot more spread out, and it seems like people are a lot more chill to a certain extent. It's still city vibe, but I don't know. It was honestly great. Jay Wilson. It's in if you go back to my if you go back to, you found it, Jay Wilson. Yeah, basically it's the #selfies channel, and then pinned messages, and you can pass your judgment as you see fit. You're from New York, hot garbage. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it is. Like, maybe I just had a tough time, but every time I went there, I just feel like no one had any time for me at all. Like, I'd ask questions, and it was just kind of like I'd get a fuck off, or I'd be going through the subway, like no idea what I'm doing, and people would literally like bump into me with their shoulders. Like my first experience was like coming down to the bottom and just taking it all in, like holy fuck. And all of a sudden, this little old woman just literally plowed into my, saying literally a lot, but plowed into my shoulder, and was just like, he's like, keep moving, asshole, or something like that. So that was really funny. But yeah. All I do is yeet, yeet, yeet. Alright, so we got 7 camping stories here, which is perfect because I will be going camping Thursday into Sunday. So I'm kind of like, you guys may have heard, coming from VidCon, go right into camping. So going to have to make, as much content as I can in a short period of time to make sure I got everything for the week. So we might end up having to utilize a collaboration with another narrator or two. So like I said, I hope you guys don't mind that too much. And I try to get, I'll see you. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Lixie's got to go. See ya. But yeah, hit that like button if you guys haven't already. We can get more people into the chat, which would be dope. And yeah. I have to record 10 seconds of silence first, because I forgot to do that, because basically I utilized that silence to create like a audio base that will then allow me to remove the rest of the background noise. So 10 seconds of silence for our fallen soldiers. Okay, thank you. Vegan Penguin with the 2. Thank you, Vegan. Good to see you. Anthony, you're going to do some voice work. Do you have a channel? Because that would be sweet. All right, yee. Let's get it cracking. Back during the summer of 2011, a few friends and I decided to organize a little camping trip to a forest just a few miles outside our hometown. Delamere Forest, despite being pretty small, presented us with a much-needed opportunity to connect with nature. City living can be good, but it can be stifling, so any chance to get out into the countryside was well received. But as time went by, and the date of the camping trip approached, things began to unravel. One by one, various friends called and texted to inform us that they wouldn't be attending because... oh, whoops, not because. It says be it family illness, but I want to make sure I said Delamere Forest. Or does anybody know where Delamere Forest is? Anthony with the 5 says, no, I do not. Also, my voice is that of a child. Oh, that's okay. Who knows? Maybe people will be into that. So this looks to be a French, but thank you for the 5. This might be a French word.
AnnounceNames.com.
Oh, God. De la mer. I don't think I'll pronounce it like a Frenchman. De la mer. Be it family illness, lack of cash, or just laziness, in the end there was only 2 of us that actually decided to go. So, early on sunny summer morning... Wait, what? It sounded weird, sorry. Cheshire, England. Let's clap them alien cheeks at Area 51. That's what I'm saying, dude. We've got options. All of us incels have hope here on the internet. Area 51 has finally brought everyone out of loneliness. So early on a sunny summer morning, we boarded a train for the journey down to the forest. The weather was perfect. A cloudless sky with a light breeze that made the hike through the woods not nearly as oppressive as we were expecting. It didn't take long for us to find a decent spot in the shade that happened to be right next to a stream we could use for washing and drinking water. The only trouble was the spot was very open, visible to passerbys and not the least bit subtle. So it's late afternoon. We're tired from our hike and we decided to build a fire to cook some dinner on. But here's the thing. Building a small fire is an essential part of camping, sure, but it attracts people. The smell of burning wood and the cooking food. The cooking food. You an incel what? People call you an alien, you gotta go set your people free. They're being held in there. Gamers need to rise up and free the aliens. The smell of burning wood and the cooking food, the smoke. Sometimes you might as well be announcing yourself to the whole forest with a megaphone or something. But we know this, so we're not exactly surprised when a group of locals stumbles across our little camp and comes down to say hello. They seem friendly enough at first, and this might sound paranoid, but the whole time I just had this bad feeling about them. It fascinates me how human instinct can pick up things like that. Little clues in body language or speech that leads us to believe that someone isn't being entirely genuine. I wasn't sure if it was the way the locals were looking at each other or the strange probing questions they asked, but I knew they didn't have the best of intentions. When they moved on and were out of earshot, my friend suggested we move the camp. Now he's normally the skittish one who I'm perennially... I can't say that word. Alien Uber requested. When they moved... Okay. Perennially. It sounds so strange. Perennially. Now he's normally the skittish one who I'm perennially telling to calm down or chill out, but on this occasion I knew he was right. Maybe we were being a little bit paranoid, but in instances such as that, it's always better to be safe than sorry. So as tired and half-drunk as we were, we packed up our stuff, doused the fire, and then started looking for another place to set up camp. Luckily, we found somewhere pretty quick. A heavily wooded hill that basically overlooked our old campsite on one side. Now that we had a direct view of it... Not that we had a direct view of it, but if you walked a minute or so away from camp, we had a pretty good view of the surrounding area. At least we did during the daytime. As the sun set, we started another fire, cooked ourselves up some ramen noodles in our mess tins, then proceeded to drink and smoke ourselves stupid. We talked nonsense around the fire until we were too tired and drunk to continue, then retired to our poncho shelters for the night. I'm pretty sure I passed out as soon as I got into my sleeping bag, as I don't remember drifting off or anything. I just know that next thing I recall is opening my eyes in pitch darkness to the sound of a distant Sorry. Someone's got to keep track of my mistakes because they are flowing. FBI, open up. Perhaps we can team up with the FBI. I think Area 51's been bullying them, so we will have to create a dark alliance, never before seen amongst gamers. I just know that the next thing that I recall is opening my eyes in pitch darkness to the sound of a distant... Shit. Yeah, where's Breadmoth? What's he up to? I just know that the next thing I can recall is opening my eyes in pitch darkness to the sound of a distant car revving its engine. At first I was just annoyed to be woken up. The hangover was kicking in hard and I felt like boiled crap. The hangover was kicking in hard and I felt like boiled feces as I tried to fall back asleep. But the distant vehicle kept revving its engine, and as the sound grew louder and louder, I knew it was getting closer. Something told me to go and check it out by the time I started to hear voices. It might have been just a bunch of kids taking a stolen car for a spin, but like I said, sometimes it's better to be safe than sorry. But when I go to the edge of the hill, I can already see torch beams all over our old campsite. The revving engine was from a vehicle that had been driven all the way down the forest path to our previous camp. Someone was down there, looking for us. I think I acted more out of instinct than anything else, moving as quickly and quietly as I could back to my sleeping friend to wake him up. I must have explained what I'd seen like 2 or 3 times. He was just as exhausted and half-drunk as I was, but when it sank in, he was up on his feet with me and helping to kick dirt on our dying fire. We then grabbed a pair of binoculars we were carrying with us and then ran back to the edge of the hill to watch the scene below. In utter horror, we could see what was in the men's hands, thanks to the torches that they shone on one another. Baseball bats, hammers, and a length of rope were just a few of the things they carried. They spat and cursed, furious that they'd come back too late to catch us to do God knows what. All we had were our Swiss Army knives to defend ourselves with. If the guys down there had decided to actually search the area, they had found us pretty easily, and I'm not sure I'd be here typing this today. But to our infinite fortune, they didn't. Maybe they'd been drinking themselves, or were just too lazy to actually look for us, but thank God they didn't. With one person keeping watch, the other went back to camp to pack their gear as fast as they could. The guys down below were hanging around our old camp, kicking at the fire we'd so carefully constructed, taking all their spite out on the things we'd left behind. As I've mentioned before, they didn't seem keen on actually looking for us, but they didn't seem like they were in a hurry to leave either. This meant we were essentially stuck on this wooded hill, as an escape attempt with our heavy packs meant that, if we were discovered, there would be no outrunning any of them, especially since they had a vehicle. We ended up staying there until morning. Neither of us could get any sleep despite the gang leaving with their vehicle. I remember being terrified they returned with more torches, with more of a will to find us. But they didn't. They were probably sleeping off their own hangovers by the time we were on the train ride home. We were due to stay another 2 nights, and I was still annoyed we'd had to call the trip short. But with those scummy local thugs around, we just didn't want to risk it. Be careful when you're traveling around, whether it is internationally or locally, because despite the unfathomable kindness of strangers, some of them aren't so friendly. Okay, I think I found my rhythm again there. And I think I missed a donation from It's Over Mannequin. That's funny. With the $5 says, you should do some vlogs at some of the scary locations from the stories. Woods or farms with cryptids, haunted schools, or routes through UFO turf. That would be cool. I have not really been much of a, free-flowing exploration type to do that, but that would be neat. Maybe on my second channel, the ASMR channel. ASMR, stumbling across Skinwalker Ranch. But that would suck if people came to your camps and just looked for you. Thankfully, my camp is I'm doing is in an actual cabin, so we'll have some defenses against the local psychopaths. Alright, so this camping story number 2 seems to take place in Scotland. Butt Fungus got me down with the $2. Thank you, Butt Fungus. Oh my god, Cashy. Welcome, Cashy. Hug me. Oh my god. Everyone give Cashy a nice hug. She needs it. Yeah, we got Mannequin of Chaos and It's Not Over Mannequin. Got quite a few mannequins in this party. You're basically asking to die if you raid Area 51. But the thing is, Lila, they can't take us all down. Didn't you read the Facebook post? Storm his cabin. Yeah, if you storm my cabin, it will be it'll be a preemptive Area 51 experience. Because we'll have lots of slingshots and marshmallows. It'll go right in your mouth. David, welcome from America. Gonna do a shout out to Patricia Hook. Sorry, hi Patricia Hook. Yeah, my second channel has not received a lot of love. It's hard to find the time to make crunchy goo goo sounds. Though I would like to, as it's not super hard. This story takes place up in Scotland a few years back. Two friends and I took an overnight coach from Liverpool to Dumfries. Alright. All these places, and I have no idea how to pronounce most of them. So I'm curious how you say Dumfries. Dumfries. Okay, that seems about right. The music is spooking you? That's good, I guess, right? Unless it's too loud. Two friends and I took an overnight coach from Liverpool to Dumfries for a week-long wild camping trip. The major difference between wild camping and regular camping is the presence of tents. Wild campers don't take tents. They just use ponchos or... what is this? Tarpaulins? Is that just a tarp? I've never seen the word tarpaulin actually typed out.
Tarpaulin.
A heavy, waterproof cloth originally... Alright, that's just a tarp. Wild campers don't take tents. They just use ponchos or tarps to make a basic shelter, then basically just sleep on the bare ground. Yeah, it can suck sometimes, but it's a challenge. It burns the fat from our souls, so to speak. So it's like 5 in the morning. We've hardly slept and we're trying to navigate our way through the Scottish countryside. Naturally, we take a wrong turn. We have 6.5 miles ahead of us, roughly 9 hours of walking, and we have taken a wrong turn 2 minutes in. I am in disbelief that we could be that dumb. Even though it's about 5:30 in the morning and we are a strange-looking trio, we stop a passing cyclist to ask directions. He is typically friendly and helpful and points us in the right direction. We turn a corner and catch a glimpse of a war memorial that would serve as a navigational checkpoint. A medley of weak cheers is droned. We cannot help but stop, lay our packs on the benches near the memorial and take a breather. The war memorial is at a crossroads. I am reminded of people taking their own lives, being buried. I am reminded of people that have taken their own lives being buried at crossroads, and this troubles me. We are bathed in warm, golden sunlight as we make our way southwest towards Cargan Bridge. Cargan Bridge. Oh yeah, Jacksepticeye was at one of the parties that I went to. Also, are any of you familiar with Boogie 29? I mean, I wasn't not a party that I went to, but my friends went to, saw Jacksepticeye and Jaden Animations. I unfortunately was not there, but that's okay because I had a good time in Disneyland. But then the night before I left, we went to a party that had Internet Jesus, if you've ever seen Internet Jesus, or he might just be called Jesus Christ on YouTube. He was a nice guy and not dressed as Jesus at that time. And then there was Boogie 2298, if you guys know him, a larger fellow, with some nice chompers. And then another guy he was talking to, or was near, was another bigger guy, known as like Billy the Fridge or something like that, who when I went to his channel, he seemed to do mainly music, but I guess he was a YouTuber as well. I did not see Markiplier, no. Yeah, it was interesting because like Reddit had been kind of shitting on Boogie, you know, for various things, you know, like him, random stuff, like him trying to sell, like the Tesla cars to his subscribers or something so that he could get a better deal on it or whatever. And then like another thing where he was like making a joke about some dude's like divorced parents or something on stream, which was just, it turned out to be really cringy and awkward, but I didn't really care because I know that sometimes Reddit can, they sort of get a dopamine rush by kind of teaming up on people and that kind of thing. But it was just funny because I sat near Boogie because I was hoping to like make my way over and say hi to him or whatever and just be like, hey, you're fucking Boogie 298. What's going on? And as I sat down, I heard the Billy the Fridge guy or something, like, because Boogie was talking to a girl, and Billy was like, how do you know my wife or something like that? Because I guess he had been talking to his girl for like a while, and I don't know, it was just kind of random. And it was just really funny because then Boogie was like, well, I think she must be a chubby chaser because she's just telling me about how she wanted both you and I on both ends of her or something like that. And I don't know if that like I heard that, and it was just like the perfect culmination of just the weirdest shit that I had expected to hear, like especially the first thing that I heard from him. And then I just kind of like got up and walked away. Not that it was like extraordinarily off-putting, but it was just a really I don't know, it was just really, really funny to hear that that's like the first thing that he said. And so rather than going up to him and being like, dude, fuck Reddit, man, blah, 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 I was just like, it appears that Reddit may have hit this one on the nose. So that is it. He also stepped on my friend's toe, which was kind of awkward. And that's pretty much that. Also, a really weird story that happened was kind of like it's both funny but also sad. Like we were at like a chicken and waffle place over in Huntington Beach, and the doors are just kind of like, just open to the air or whatever. And like all of us, I'm just eating like this like sort of maple syrup covered, chicken waffle sandwich, and then out of nowhere, like a husky dog just like sprints in through the door, and I'm just like, oh my god, that's a doggo. And it's just kind of like prancing around, like sniffing everybody's table, running around really fast. And then it like almost just barely makes it almost makes it into the kitchen, but the door like closes in his face, and then he's just like off to the next thing. And then this random guy like runs into the store holding his leash up like above his head, like as if though he's like presenting it, and he's just like, I sorry like, like saying like, I lost my dog. And then I was gonna grab the dog because it was like went right by me, but my hands being covered in maple syrup, it would have been a bad scenario. But he was able to get it, and that was really funny. So the sad part was then later that day, after the party, I was kind of like the only one that didn't drink, and my friend had drove there and needed me to drive him home. I drove his car. And, as we were going down kind of like a 40 mile an hour, this is going to be a really sad story. So if anybody has any sort of triggers related to pets or anything, I'm going to ask you to cover your ears. It's not anything that I did, but it was something that I witnessed. Okay, fair warning. And so anyways, I was driving down this like 40 mile an hour road, and I see in the gutter just along the road, just out of nowhere, I see in a gutter is just like a dead husky dog laying in this gutter. And it just like blew my mind because I've never seen like a dead dog or a dog that got hit by a car, really anywhere in my life before. Or if I have, it's always been pretty astonishing to like see it happen. I mean, I've seen like cats here and there or random animals, but it was, oh man, it freaking caught me off guard. And then I like immediately went back to the, thought process of how that other dog was like, that looked just like it, where it was like a black and white, like husky. It just took me back to that. And I was like putting two and two together and just like wondering like, was that like the same dog? Which, either way, it was just sad as all get out, but I don't know. That was a weird, interesting experience. Oh, a bear got hit in the street a few days ago. I feel like a bear would almost seem more normal to me, even though I know it's LA, but the dog was about the size of like a black bear. It was crazy. Heather Carpenter with $1. Thank you for that. Also, we went and saw the new Spider-Man movie in a theater, and the theater had a bar. It had like reclining seats that you could control electronically. It had, they had trays that you could, put all your food and drink on, and they also had freaking servers that served like actually good food, like legitimate like meals and stuff like that. So that was freaking the highest quality movie theater that I've ever been to, because most of the movie theaters around here, they're nice as far as sitting goes, but all you can really get is like popcorn and soda or candy. So like see like legitimate like alcohol and servers going around taking people's orders, and you can press a button to get their attention and stuff. It was oh man, it was cool. And Spider-Man was pretty good too. The war memorial is at a crossroads. I am reminded of people taking their own lives, being buried at crossroads, and this troubles me. We are bathed in warm golden sunlight as we make our way southwest towards Cargan Bridge. The pavement is narrow, and we are often forced onto the road to stay level. On a rise to our left, we see our first rabbit. This seems like a good omen. We mind... What? Oh, we mime? We mime aiming through imaginary... Oh, okay. We mime aiming through imaginary scopes, making popping sounds and rubbing our bellies at it. It clocks us and scampers into a hedgerow. We continue walking under heavy packs, past a tacky fox stone house sign with two plastic-looking swords protruding from it. It says something in Gaelic. Only in Scotland one of us pants. We reach Cargan Bridge and cross the brae with... Cross the brae? There's so many words. Especially Scottish words. Alright, this might be loud.
Brae.
Brae. Wait, what is a brae? Guys, we're going to be learning together. A brae is a steep bank or hillside. A figure was spied struggling up the brae. Okay. See, my stream is a learning, educational stream. So when YouTube comes for me, we can all claim that. We reach Cargan Bridge and cross the brae with an old blacksmith's dwelling at its foot. Working our way up a gentle slope past the local secondary school and reach the farm track. We have made good time, and there are no farmhands in the fields, just scores of grazing livestock. The farmer's house is exceptionally trim, but the cattle shed and neighboring building are run down and I suspect home to bats. Sheep and months? Oh. Sheep and months-old lambs spot us and skip away skittishly. We navigate past the cattle shed and clamber over two fences to avoid a giant waste tank. This had inadvertently put us right in front of another kind of fence, the electrified kind. Is that electric? Someone whines. I follow the wire with my gaze and see it dig sharply, connecting with a battery unit. I grimace. It is too high to bound over, and our packs make it impossible to crawl under it. I imagine what it feels like to receive an electric shock to my testicles. I spot a large piece of deadwood, and, surrounded by fresh cowpats, and, as if they were landmines, avoid them nervously and drag the deadwood to the fence. It is heavy enough to pin it down. As I step over, I hear it buzzing faintly. We continue across two fields, climbing the fence between them. This is not easy with a heavy pack. I take out my iPhone to film the ascent of the first of many hills. We start to breathe heavily as our packs suddenly feel twice as heavy, and we lean forward to maintain momentum. Our steps are strained and small. I put the phone away. At the steepest point, the banter ceases, and we heave ourselves up the grassy ascent. I start to feel hungry, and our first rest point comes into view. A planned stop to orient and order ourselves. We lay down our packs just a few yards away from where we pitched our tent on the previous trip, and rest our aching legs. My friend Corky takes his shirt off. It is soaked with sweat, and I notice steam rising from his shoulders. "Jesus, Martin," the other guy exclaims. Oh, his name is Martin. Jesus. Martin, the other guy, exclaims. There's actual steam coming off of you. We laugh as we take out tobacco and food. Martin and I have the same Scotch oatcakes. We eat them with cheese spread and share Martin's jet-boiled coffee. The jet boil is an incredibly handy little gadget and will almost become the center of our lives for the next week. Corky puts on my dry civilian clothes and eyes up a tin of all-day breakfast, proceeding to read out some of the ingredients. It is much cooler here in the shade, and we gaze out across the landscape, either picking bits of oatcake out of our teeth or smoking rolled cigarettes. It is already 7 in the morning, yet our sleep deprivation makes it seem later in the day. This is mildly disorienting, yet we estimate arrival at Lockerbur. Uno momento, let me figure out how to say this word. Location, rather. Lockerbur. Let's see. Sometimes Wikipedia has like the actual physical pronunciation, but sometimes you have to type it in and type definition into Google, and Google, or dictionary.com or Merriam's will have it. Lockerbur. Sometimes they'll have it actually recorded out, which makes it easier. Let's see here. Here we go.
La Haber Axe.
What the fuck? La Haber? Sorry about blowing your ears out there. La Haber. La Haber. Alright, well, I'm probably going to butcher that, but that's okay. Blue Note, welcome back with the $9. Says, sup, my dude? Not much, but always here to support you, man. Love listening to your videos at 3:30 a.m. on my way to work and for the first hour of work. Alright. Well, thank you. I hope you have a good work sesh, and thank you for the $9. What is oat cake? I don't know. I've never had oat cake before. Mary Dowd, yeah, I did have fun. You missed all the stories earlier, but I might have some more. I don't know if I told everything yet, but I seriously did have a great time there, and I hope to maybe go to more meetups and cons and stuff, so. Jackie Nightshift, Mr. Joel, please be my senpai. I don't know if I get to decide to be your senpai or not. I think that's something you decide. Lucy, hello, yes. Cali was amazing. Sunny every day. Every day was sunny. No earthquakes. Only a few twitchy, zombie-like homeless people. Other than that, it was fantastic. They also had a mall completely devoted to anime weeb stuff. So that was kind of, would have been my like high school dream. But it was still fun to kind of wander through. And I got a funny like shirt for my roommate, which is like Bulma in a bikini. So that's pretty ballin'. George, you got it. I'm telling a story right now. La Haber. This is mildly disorienting, yet we estimate arrival at La Haber by around 10. Corky is skeptical of this. The wrong turn was not a satisfyingly enough speed bump. Shit. The wrong turn was not a satisfying enough speed bump, and he is still expecting one. This feeling is justified. After moving slowly but steadily cross-country along the ridge of the hill, we reach the small collection of houses that serve as a landmark. After some deliberation, we decided to cross a field of cows that has the only After some deliberation, we decided to cross a field of cows that has the only I can't say this word, traversable. Why the fuck is that word used? After some deliberation, we decided to cross a field of cows that has the only traversable fence we can see. We are motivated partly because it seems quick and easy, partly because it avoids another more vicious-looking electric fence. About halfway across the field, I notice the numerous cows begin to stare at us. This is not usually particularly intimidating, but their number and obviously hostile glares make me slow my step. They're all looking at us, I say. They're just curious. Martin says. The cows begin walking towards us, spreading out in a line. I am reminded of almost a battle formation. They're walking towards us now. They just want to have a look at us, Martin says. The cows start to... Whoops. The cows begin walking towards us. Wait, fuck. I messed that up. Where am I right now? The cows begin trotting towards us, and then what the fuck? Why am I missing this? Sorry. The cows start into a trot and then a cumbersome gallop. Corky stops and starts to walk backwards. Dude, they're running at us. I too stop and begin to turn. Over my shoulder, I see a small enclosure with electrical conductors in it. Bail, dude, bail. Corky, yeah. Corky, what the fuck? Ryan Long, thank you for the $1. Corky yelps, and we try to run under our packs. This amounts to hobbling. I have already waded up and have decided death by electricity has to be quicker than trampling. Don't run! Martin screams. Instantly the order fires synapses in my brains. My brains, Jesus Christ, dude. This guy is like next level writing right now. This is hard for my brain. I have already waded up and have decided death by electricity has to be quicker than trampling. Don't run! Martin screams. Instantly the order fires synapses in my brain. I stop, spin around, and throw my arms into the air, making myself appear large. Corky repeats the same motion, simultaneously and without regarding me. The charging cows seem to respond instantly. Some stop, the rest slow their pace. I hear an indistinct shouting coming from the other side of the field. It is the farmer, bidding us to advance along the fence to the gate. See, we're good. Just keep moving, Mart says, reassured. We move slowly and compactly, arms outstretched as the cows surround us and jostle for a view of us. They are aggressive with each other. Some mount the cows in front of them for a glimpse. This is all okay, I say to myself. This is all going to be okay. Nice cows. This is completely safe. This isn't really Paro. I want to laugh, but I cannot. I am genuinely terrified, limbs shaking. I climb over the wooden gate as the farmer addresses us. They're just curious. They're just come up for a wee look. If you're along the edge of the field, you'll do all right, if you'd gone across then. He then breaks off and looks away. Then I don't know. Could you tell us a good route to Maybe House? Just follow this road here. It's usually quiet, then turn right at the main road and follow it. Don't turn off into the farm. Just keep going and you'll find the road to the house, or key. Yeah, cheers, mate. We are delighted for his assistance. He seems mildly interested in us, but is obviously too annoyed that the commotion... Whoops. Hey, Ryan Long with the $1. Thank you, Ryan. And Emily Rose with the huge 50 dono. Thank you, Emily. It's good to see you again. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope I saw some of your posts on Instagram with the mudding trucks and I forget what that term is, where the trucks try to ascend a certain type of stone. But thank you. That's huge. Seriously. He seems mildly interested in us, but is obviously too annoyed that But is obviously too annoyed by the commotion to show it. Pretty much every time I told this story since, people have laughed. I get that. I can see why a bunch of city kids getting scared by cows is definitely somewhat comedic. But it did scare the life out of us, especially when we got home from the trip and realized just how much danger we were really in. You see, cows kill more people each year than sharks do, in pretty much the exact way I described. A hiker or country walker decides to cut across a field, not around it or using the edge, and they get trampled by cows. In fact, the UK Health and Safety Executive has since reissued long-standing advice to farmers not to put calves and their mothers in fields accessible to the public as a precaution. That is straight up pulled from an article from the British newspaper The Independent. So next time you fancy taking a shortcut through a field, make sure it's not occupied. You could get a nasty, very unexpected surprise. Samantha, yes, thank you. Well, I am back from VidCon. I'm surprised that YouTube doesn't send the notifications. I can never anticipate when they'll do that. But if you guys hit that like button, that should help increase my chances in the lottery that is YouTube. But if you guys don't get notifications for videos and that kind of thing, just know that new videos come out Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then I try to stream the night before, kind of in the later hours, starting around 9 o'clock-ish, but was a little bit late tonight. Yeah, I've seen a lot of cows, but you never think you're going to get trampled by them, so that's actually really scary. Also, I like that that's I don't know. I like that that was a very odd story as well, a very different one than the normal spooktastic stuff. Alright, this one, I don't know if Wichita? Is it Wichita? But it's spelled like O. I have no idea how that's pronounced. Also, I want to ban Emma saying from YouTube because every time you go there, she's like, it's like they have a robot do it, but like she gets a ridiculous amount of views. Washita? Quashita? I don't even know what she's saying. Guys, I'm starting a meme war with Emma saying. Let it be known.
Washita.
Washita. Okay. Spelled with an O. Washita. I guess Emma might be right. Alright, I retract the meme war with Emma. She's just a nice computerized voice girl. Washita National Forest is the oldest of its kind in the southern United States. Nearly 2 million acres of untouched wilderness that make for some of the best hunting trips imaginable. In fact, it is said that Washita is composed of the Choctaw words Owa. Wait, fuck. Hey, Ash with the 5 says, glad you're back. Thank you. I'm glad to be back. It's interesting when you go somewhere and you're there for a while, you kind of like, you get used to your surroundings very quickly, to a certain extent, but it's not till you return home that you realize like how awesome being home is and just the general sensation of being comfortable, like entirely comfortable somewhere, you know, can be. In fact, it is said that Washita is composed of the Choctaw word of Owa for hunting and Shito for big, together meaning big hunt far from home. So as you can imagine, during hunting season, you can't move for high-vis jackets. What? High-vis? You can't move for high-vis jackets and bright orange. Oh. So as you can imagine, during hunting season, you can't move for high-vis jackets and bright orange hunter caps. My buddies and I have never really been into hunting. We're about as East Coast as they come. I mean, until we visited Arkansas, I'd barely even made it past Pennsylvania, so our idea of relaxing in nature does not include butchering a freshly killed animal. So when we discovered that there was window a window during high summer when hunting in the Washita is strictly forbidden, we were absolutely elated. There'd be entire sections of the forest that would be basically deserted. We'd have the place to ourselves, or so we thought. We drove for 8 hours a day for 3 days to make it all the way to Arkansas from our home in Haverhill, Massachusetts. Since 1,500 miles in one sitting was too nauseating to think about, we made a little road trip out of it, stopping in Philly, D.C., and then Nashville. Honestly, I think I could move to D.C. just for the mumbo sauce. I saw it on Anthony Bourdain and just had to try it. Trust me, it does not disappoint. But anyway, by the time we finally made it to Washita National Forest, we were seriously ready to relinquish the trappings of society and embrace the tranquility and purity of nature, which is a fancy-pants way of saying we were ready to get blind drunk around a roaring fire and sing Dropkick Murphy songs at the top of our lungs, which we did, maybe with a little too much enthusiasm, as after just 2 out of the 4 nights we were due to camp in the Washita, we ran out of beer and tobacco. Not exactly at an opportune moment either. It was late in the afternoon when we opened our coolers to discover just 3 untouched cans, just enough to keep us company on what would surely be hours of walking to the nearest liquor store. Outlaw Liquor was a little more than a wooden shack on the outskirts of a small town called Crystal Springs. It took us about 3 hours of solid walking to get there, and I can promise you, it's worth every step. At first, we weren't sure if we were in a liquor store or a hunting lodge. There were taxidermies of black bears, buck, turkeys, and red foxes dotted all over the place. Jeff, the owner, showed us all the locally made wines and spirits and even gave us samples of a few choice fermentations. We walked in with the intention of grabbing a 6-pack or 2 and left with our backpacks full of beers, some of Jeff's homemade beef jerky, and a few little bottles of homebrew wine, along with a bottle each of what Jeff, the owner, called barrel-aged What is this word? Abraxas? Let's see. A word of mystic meaning in the system of Gnostic Great Archon. Okay, so it's an ultra spirit.
Abraxas. Abraxas.
We'll say Abraxas. Guys, are we hugging everyone in chat? Is everyone getting hugged? Along with a bottle, each of what Jeff, the owner, called barrel-aged Abraxas, a locally brewed stout that was 11%. Yep, you read that right. 11%. The sun was beginning to drip below the horizon by the time we were anywhere near our campsite, as aching feet from hours of walking were numbered by the booze we sipped as we walked. I had already cracked open my own little pack of jerky, passing out strips of it as we hoped that it might soak up a little of the booze. We were at that point in a drinking session when bladders are getting a little too full, so every so often our journey back to the camp, we'd stop so one of us could take a walk off in the trail to urinate. It was a beautiful evening. Crickets chirped as bats flew around our heads, chirping softly as they used their sonar to hone in on flying insects. When it was my turn to call for a pee break, my buddies sat down on the edge of the trail with their beers as I wandered off into the woods to find a decent spot. I found one, did my thing, and then started to turn back when I heard something through the trees. It sounded like people. Hushed voices and footfalls among the fallen leaves. In my stupid, half-boozed state, I thought it might be a good idea to introduce myself. Maybe we could have a few drinks, tell some stories, make some friends. But these people did not want to be friends. As I pushed through a patch of dense brush and into a small woodland clearing, it became clear that wanting to introduce myself was a terrible idea. The moment I emerged, 3 or 4 guys in the clearing turning to look at me in angry surprise. They were rough clothing. They were in rough clothing, ragged leather boots, and a lot of denim. Each had some kind of weapon in their hands, machetes, bowie knives. One of them had this rusted spiked club that looked like it could have been 100 years old. Between them, hog-tied and writhing in the dirt, was a young woman, her body a mosaic of bruises and abrasions. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Never in my life have I heard anything so upsetting, Jesus Christ. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Never in my life have I heard anything so upsetting as the noises she made through her cloth gag. When I finally unglued my eyes from the sight before me, I looked up at one of the hillbillies. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. All right. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Never in my life had I heard anything so upsetting as the noises she made through her cloth gag. When I finally unglued my eyes from the sight before me, I looked up at one of the hillbilly-looking guys looming over the prostrate girl. He was smiling, and with one smooth motion he raised a single finger to his lips. Shh. I turned and started walking, slowly at first. I didn't want those guys to think I was panicking, that I was going to call the cops or something. I tried to stay calm, but after a few seconds I started running, sprinting towards the trail. I didn't need to say a word to my friends. They started sprinting too as soon as they saw my face. We ran and ran and ran, until my buddy puked up beer and half-digested jerky all over himself. But by that point, we were out of danger. No one was following us. When I told them exactly what I'd seen, an argument ensued. One of my friends went to call the cops immediately, while the other insisted we had to get out of the woods as soon as possible. This would mean driving his car well over the limit until we could find a motel. We could not call the cops and risk a DUI, not in Missouri. We concluded that we'd call the cops first, then get out of there into a hotel before we got pulled over, breathalyzed, and arrested. We never heard back from the cops. My buddy reported what I'd seen over the phone in a much... We never heard back from the cops. My buddy reported what I'd seen over the phone in as much detail as he could, but I never got closure for what I'd seen that night. I often wonder what happened to that girl, if she ended up getting rescued or if she is living a peaceful, happy life now. But sometimes in the darkest of moments, I know that girl didn't make it out of Wichita. Wait, how the hell do you say that place again? Sorry. Oh, I forgot. Not the best time to forget for this super sad story. I forgot.
Washita.
Washita. Okay, sorry. But sometimes, in the darkest of moments, I know that girl didn't make it out of the Washita. Even if she was alive, a piece of her would forever be left in that little clearing in the woods, taken from her by cruel, wild men. Comes across a camp full of guys, terrifying scene. Oh, they must have did a too long didn't read at the bottom or something like that. Even if she was alive, a piece of her would be forever left in that little clearing in the woods, taken from her by cruel, wild men. Yeah, show Joel how much you missed him and hit that like button. Blah, blah, blah. Can we get to 500 and beyond? That would be lovely. Does anyone here play Super Smash Bros? If so, what's your favorite character? Who do you main, as they say? Alright, this is story 4 of 7. Angel, welcome, welcome. Do I believe in aliens? I think so. Or maybe it's just the government. Or maybe they're interdimensional. Who knows? I don't. All I know is that we'll find out when we storm Area 51. Who's with me? Jackie, you're an alpha. You play Halo. Yeah, I'm pretty excited for Halo. I can't wait. Donkey Kong or Cloud? Yeah, those are cool. Donkey Kong's sweet. I love that he can power up a big punch. It's pretty awesome. Jamie with the 10 said, missed you. So glad you're back. Thank you, Jamie. I missed you as well. I missed everybody. It honestly feels really good to be back. Also, I was talking to a friend that kind of met through social media about her experiences at Funimation. And it sounds really, really cool. And by talking to them, seems like a legitimate, not for me necessarily, but like if I do decide to go down that track of trying to make something like that happen, it's awesome to hear really encouraging words from individuals that have already become voice actors there, that it's more than possible to occur, should all the planets appropriately align and that kind of thing. So that's something I'm not saying that as if though it's a thing that's going to happen, but I'm just saying in the idea of like it's encouraging, from the perspective of to hear from a voice actor who actually does it. So that's really neat. Emily, you vote for interdimensional for the aliens? Yeah, it's hard to say. Maybe there's both. Alright, so first off I have to remember what this symbol means. Oh, it's a pound. Okay. I don't know why I mix up the pound and the euro sign. Oh, okay. They're not really the same at all. Lucario, yeah, Lucario is really strong. I use Captain Falcon. Maybe that'll be my first Let's Read meetup. Will be at Area 51. I'll see you guys there. I really hope we do meme this into existence and people actually go. Back in early 2014, a few friends and I had an idea to do something for charity. We discussed shaving our heads, running marathons, organizing some kind of community picnic, but nothing seemed to gain any traction. They were all tired, overused ideas. If we wanted to get donations, we needed to do something big. So when I had the idea of spending 7 nights sleeping rough after hiking 20 miles into the Brecon Beacon Mountain... That was a tongue twister right there. So when I had the idea of spending 7 nights sleeping rough after hiking 20 miles into the Brecon Beacon mountain range in Wales, I knew it was crazy enough to get donations, but I didn't think my friends would agree to it. But they did. For some inexplicable reason, they agreed. It was a numbers game. Simple. Tell people 7 nights, 20 miles, homeless for the homeless, and watch the purse string loosen. By the date of departure, we'd collected the grand total of pounds, just over 1,500 US dollars, for shelter, a British charity that helps street sleepers and those facing housing crises. We felt proud beyond words. But in the run-up to the aforementioned day of departure, we were getting pretty anxious. The Brecon beacons are used by the British Special Air Services, basically our version of Delta Force, for their training due to how rugged and wild the terrain can be. We'd also planned the trip for early April, which meant heavy rain and strong winds. This meant that we ended up investing a fair bit of our own money in military surplus equipment. We'd need a lot of gear to keep ourselves safe and warm for 7 whole nights in the beacons, and it so happened that Army surplus gear was the cheapest and most reliable option. So as you can imagine, we were covered in camouflage for the march out in the beacons. Huge rucksacks stuffed with canned food and water weighed us down as more miles meant more pain. Pain in the shoulders, pain in the feet, pain in the knees and the neck and the thighs. By mile 17, the 2 other guys who had... By mile 17, the 2 other guys who attended had thrown in the towel. I found myself the only dissenting voice as they proposed we call a taxi for the final 3 miles of the journey. One of my friends claimed his pack was ridiculously heavy, and he simply couldn't carry on marching. I wondered just what he'd brought with him that made his gear so difficult to march with. But when we reached a large freshwater lake and set up camp, I found out why. He'd brought an air rifle, a .22 pellet gun that must have accounted for almost half the weight he was carrying. Yeah, I was a little annoyed. Maybe if he'd left it behind, he'd have had it in him to keep going, but boys with toys, right? We had 8 whole days to kill. Target shooting would definitely account for a few hours of fun, not to mention if we found ourselves a tasty-looking wood pigeon or rabbit, we might be able to treat ourselves to a bit of fresh meat. So after an initial first night of exhaustion, chilling around a fire at the lake's edge before getting some sleep, we arose at dawn with a big day ahead of us. Somehow we'd gotten into our heads that a dawn hunt would be a good idea. Few people around, the wildlife would be active, but it wasn't to be. We didn't get a decent shot on a single animal, but we did run into something. At one point in the absolute middle of nowhere, we break through a tree line to... What you guys are talking about? What is Smash? Smash Brawl Gamer. Everybody's talking about Smash. Or is they referring to you, Brawl Gamer? I feel like I'm missing a conversation that's quite entertaining. At one point in the absolute middle of nowhere, we break through a tree line and find ourselves face to face with a blurry-eyed, early-morning dog walker. We couldn't believe it. The chances of running into someone around here was minimal, but there someone was, looking nervously at a group of lads wearing camouflage, one of which was carrying an air rifle that looked exactly like an actual firearm. We waved, he smiled, we all moved on. We didn't think anything of it, to be honest. He didn't seem like the type to call the police or make a big deal out of it. I mean, he didn't ask questions. He didn't even mention the rifle. So by the time we made it back to our camp in time for lunch, it incidentally had been pretty much forgotten. After an afternoon of gathering firewood and other camp crafts, we settled in for an evening of fireside storytelling. I cracked out a few choice ghost stories, some of which got more laughs than spooks, while we downed a few beers before heading to sleep. A few hours later, I'm jolted awake by something. The large shelter we'd made for the 3 of us from a huge tarp should have been pitch black, but I could see rays of light penetrating from torch beams outside. Then I heard it. "Armed police, come out with your hands raised right now!" One by one, we exited the shelter, just as they ordered us to. My hands were shaking horribly as I pushed them out of the entrance and into the blinding light of 5 or 6 torches. I remember the pure gut-wrenching fear as I realized the beams of light weren't in the police's hands. They were attached to the end of whatever weapons they were carrying. I only noticed in a flash, but the realization hit me right between the eyes. I'm honestly amazed I didn't wet myself right then and there. "On the ground, now! Get on the bloody ground!" I hit the dirt, hands on the back of my head as my two friends followed. Soon, all three of us were lying face down on the cold, wet forest floor as the armed police searched our shelter. It didn't take them long to find the air rifle. "Got it, boss," one of them called out. I couldn't see any of this, but it was obvious based on what they were saying. "Is that it? That's your lot, yeah? Just a pellet gun by the looks of it? Wait, so you three aren't pathfinders or something?" It took a minute before we found the balls to speak up. No. Not military at all, no? No. The three of us said at once. "Oh, well, all right then." The police officer in charge took a few guys back down the trail a little and had a little huddle. From what I could figure out, the dog walker who had seen us had mistakenly thought that we were British Army, lost in maneuvers, and had decided to inform the authorities. I don't know if this is standard procedure for civilians in the area. I mean, they must be used to the presence of armed men in the beacons, but sometimes I think he may have thought we were going AWOL or something and made the decision to call it in. There are a lot of ex-officers living in the beacons. Maybe he was one of them. But I digress. The armed police had us get up off the ground before they questioned us as to why we were there. We were honest to a fault, told them it was a charity thing, homeless for the homeless, or whatever maxim we'd adopted for the fundraising. Aside from the air rifle, they actually seemed pretty impressed. I figured they'd be annoyed at the false alarm, but in reality, an armed policeman getting the call means overtime pay and hunting idiots in the woods with real guns, not crappy pellet guns. This wasn't some inconvenience for them. They live for this stuff. It was surreal, but they left having only confiscated the air rifle. They left us our knives and fishing gear, even though we admitted to not having a fishing permit for any of the local lakes. They talked about smelling something funny in the air, but still didn't search our tent for anything else, even though I know they'd found a lot. Whoops. I missed a dono here from Anthony with a 10. Says there's something you need to know. Reese's Pieces cereal is life. It was back in the day. That was my definitive go-to for cereal. I mean, I love chocolate peanut butter. It's my all-time favorite. If I get any sort of ice cream, is usually involves some sort of peanut butter. When I go to Dairy Queen, I'm always getting, the freaking Reese's cups or Reese's something, involved in that for the Blizzard. Now, I also really enjoy, Dairy Queen has kind of let me down from time to time because I don't know how many of you have experienced this, but it's like you get a Blizzard and it's got all the crap on the top, but then, as you make your way down, it's getting like less and less stuff. And I just kind of wish that they would make it maybe in more of like layers or something like that, where they first do the first layer with a bunch of junk and then like just keep layering it so that like you consistently get a bunch of, carb coma inducing stuff as you make it down. Yeah, too bad I don't have a Baskin Robbins. They probably have the shiz-niz out that way. But, yeah, I love Reese's. That's like my go-to. On my ASMR, or no, it was on Dalton ASMR. You guys might be able to find that if you go to Dalton ASMR and type in Let's Read. There's about 3 collaborations I've done on there with eating stuff and that kind of thing. And one of them was a food eating challenge where we ate those like pound-size Reese's cups. And I completely dominated because I'm kind of a beast, but I love Reese's so much, so I wholeheartedly agree. They talked about smelling something funny in the air, but still didn't search our tent for anything. Even though I know that they'd found a lot, we didn't want them to. They also verbally assured us that we'd not be charged with anything. Just don't do it again, boys, yeah? Was all they had to say on the subject. We actually went back to collect the air rifle, too. In the back of my mind, I was sure they'd go back on their... In the back of my mind, I was sorry. Everything at Sonic is made of Sonic meat. Get a meat blizzard, that's what I need. Beef jerky blizzard. In the back of my mind, I was sure they'd go back on their word and arrest us at the police station. There are some serious armed trespass laws in the UK, and to this day, I have literally zero clue as to why they didn't charge us with anything. I'd like to think that they were impressed with the whole charity thing that they decided to come down lightly on us, but in reality, I think we just got lucky. After all, I still think we're extremely lucky that our pellet gun wasn't the only thing they'd taken from us that night. One wrong move, I might not even be here to type this. You guys getting that bacon blizzard? That ham, bacon, cheese blizzard? In honor of storming Area 51, we're releasing a radioactive blizzard. First 1,000 participants might actually die before they get there. Alright, so we are on story 5 of 7. Guys, thank you for your donos tonight and being here, and thank you for the warm welcome. I very much appreciate it. Yeah, we need Review Bra to do the alien radioactive blizzard and or meat and cheese blizzard review on his channel. Meat sweats, ice cream, meat and dairy, the perfect mixture. Ham and dairy, ham and dairy. We'll hand it out at Bat's mitzvahs. Very kosher. A few years back, a few friends and I went on a camping trip in the Scottish Highlands. It was tough going. The weather was unforgiving and the terrain even more so, but the trip was an overall success. No one got hurt, no one got lost, nothing remotely unnerving or scary happened at all. At least until the last night when we arrived back in the small Scottish village we were due to catch a bus in. We were physically and emotionally exhausted by the time we arrived back in the small highland village that served as our line of departure. 5 nights in the mountains will do that to you. We had barely slept and barely eaten, so the sight of a small, greasy spoon cafe almost brought tears to our eyes. We drew stares from the locals, and to be honest, I don't blame them. We were a mess of bloodshot eyes and greasy hair. All of our clothes reeked of smoke from huddling around a fire at night. They were curious, but still friendly. The owner questioned us on our trip and took a great deal of pleasure in our fascination with the Highlands. It always earns you brownie points with the locals when you tell them they must be tough. Tell them they must be tough. Oh, okay. It always earns you brownie points with the locals when you tell them they must be tough, hard-working people to live in such a barren place. We left with full stomachs and headed to the nearest and only pub in the village. They were equally welcome, and even stayed open an hour or so later than usual, just so we'd have somewhere to keep warm until our late-night bus was set to arrive. We left the pub with about 20 minutes before our bus was due, having heartily thanked the bar staff for accommodating us, then made our way along almost barely lit streets towards the village's one and only bus stop. Now, it's important to note that the bus stop is located just next to a small bridge which provides a crossing point over the river that runs through the village. So in the low light of semi-functioning streetlights, we knew that there was a bridge. We just couldn't see what was on it at any one time. The minutes are ticking by and we're all clock watching, We can't wait to go home to hot showers, warm beds, and properly cooked food. There must have been less than 10 minutes to wait when we heard something from the other side of the river, a grunting sound, but I think we were too buzzed and exhausted to make anything of it. But the sound continues, getting louder and more vocal until we realize there's someone on the other side of the bridge, someone who sounded drunk, someone who sounded angry. I can't remember who, but someone was curious enough to gather the energy to go check it out. I wasn't watching, but I could hear their heavy footsteps and boots against the metal bridge, moving slowly to the top. Then there was a humdrum of noise as they came down the bridge stairs faster than they'd gone up. "Grab your bags now," he hissed, trying to keep his voice down. "Come on, move." We had no idea what was going on. In fact, I thought it might be some sort of prank, some lame attempt to inject a little excitement into the final hour of our trip. But one look in his eyes told me he was serious. I had never seen my friend that scared before, ever. As if to confirm what he was saying, I began to hear the same kind of footstep noise on the metal bridge. Someone was moving fast across the bridge from the other side, making the same angry grunting noises we'd been hearing. None of us wanted to take a chance, so we all grabbed our heavy packs and dragged them across the road and into a small, dark village street. We were fairly concealed in the darkness, but we still had a good look at our side of the bridge, each of us wanting to see just what had scared our mate so much. Then we saw it. A man staggering down the bridge's metal stairs with something in his grip, the glinting of stainless steel in the low light. Jesus Christ, is that a machete? No sooner had one of us exclaimed that, the man honed in on the sound of our voices. He raised the huge blade in his fist, pointing it towards the dark alleyway that we thought was concealing us. "You!" he roared in his rough Scottish accent, and then began to bound down the bridge's stairs towards us, waving the machete as he ran. We bolted, hurtling down the small dark street. We had no idea where we were going, but anywhere that wasn't in the immediate vicinity of this drunken blade-wielding We had no idea where we were going, but anywhere that wasn't in the immediate vicinity of this drunken blade-wielding maniac had to be better. Whoever was in the lead must have had the presence of mind to loop around the block. If we got too far away from the bus stop, we'd miss our ride, and the only other inner-city bus to roll through the village wasn't due for another 2 days. He explained this to us the first chance he got, and we all rued the situation we were faced with. Go back to the bus stop and risk getting stabbed, or stay away from the bus stop, miss our bus, and end up stuck in the middle of nowhere in Scotland. It was like a military operation or something. We moved in pairs, covering each other's movement and watching for any sign of our potential murderer. Somehow we made it back towards the bus stop without running into him. We figured we'd lost him and started to relax as best we could. It was about 5 minutes after the bus was due to arrive and we were starting to panic again. Some of us had gotten it into their heads that we'd missed the bus entirely, and we better start looking for a decent place to bed down before we ran into the machete wielder again. But they didn't have to wait long, as a few minutes later, a familiar-looking figure emerged from one of the poorly lit side streets. Our collective hearts sank when we saw what he had in his grip, the machete. It was the same guy. "You!" he roared again before slowly walking towards us. This time we took a different tact. I don't know if it was the adrenaline or the pure desperation to catch the bus and get our butts out of there, but we stood our ground. We roared back at him, pulled out our pathetically small Swiss Army knives and dared him to try us. Looking back on it, it was kind of glorious. We went from terrified vermin, scattered through the streets, to full-on warriors willing to defend their ground. What happened next was like something out of a film. As we were facing the dude, we began like pacing back and forth in the street, zigzagging toward us in the street, still waving his machete. He was obviously deterred slightly by our newfound aggression, but it obviously didn't deter him entirely. A horrible feeling came over me as I realized that one of us could well be able to... A horrible feeling came over me as I realized that one of us could well be about to suffer life-changing injuries. But in the distance, near where the road pulled away from the river's course, a police van came trundling around... God damn it. A police van came trundling around the corner, revving towards the scene to our rescue. It was like the cavalry showing up in an old western, and we were saved. Our bravado doubled, and we actually began to advance up to him, pushing him towards the approaching police that he was somehow completely oblivious of. He only realized what was happening when the van skidded to a stop behind him, and a trio of burly-looking Scottish policemen jumped out and pounced on him. He got tackled hard, so hard you heard the sickening thud of his head slam... His HUD. Shit. Wait, what's the minus number mean? Counting down the days till summer ends? Because that's... seems a little soon. Wait, why are we advancing? What's going on with the numbers? Did something happen? Oh. Are we doing math? I'm confused. I may have missed something. Okay, so this guy got a thud and hit his head on a street. That's cool. Okay, here we go. He got tackled. Hard. So hard you heard the sickening thud of his head slamming into the concrete. But he had zero sympathy. Sympathy. Oh my god. I just had a little bit of a lisp. But he had zero sympathy. We had zero sympathy. Sympathy. I had zero sympathy for this guy. We feared that the bedroom's lights in nearby dwellings flickered on and faces began to appear from the windows to watch the melee. But we had zero sympathy. We cheered as the bedroom lights of nearby dweller and... Fuck, dude. These words are so extra. But we had zero sympathy. We cheered as the bedroom's lights of nearby dwellings flickered on and faces began to appear in windows to watch the melee. Then, as all this is happening, the bloody bus turns up, coming around the same corner the police van did. We continued to cheer, grabbing our bags and padding victoriously towards our ride home. The police wanted to talk to us about what had happened, but backed off once we explained that this was our one ride out of town. I told them we'd be in touch to make telephone statements, but we never ended up getting in touch. We were all just so glad to be out of there, in one piece. Smash Brawler, you, sir, are in time out, Mr. Man. You were naughty in the chat. Alright, so this is story number 6. Also, guys, start thinking of things that you want to hear at the end of the video that will make you giggle. Oh, man. Tired. It's like super hot. Super hot. Super hot. Jesus Christ. You guys are funny. You guys are funny people. I loved camping. I used to spend every waking moment either camping or planning a camping trip. I love being outdoors, away from the suffocating... sorry. I love being outdoors, away from the suffocating mundanity. Mundanity, is that an actual word?
Mundanity.
Sorry. Mundanity. Never heard that used before. If you're a dork, eat the pork. I love being outdoors, away from the suffocating mundanity of everyday events, the first world problems. I used to do it pretty hardcore too, making shelters instead of taking a tent, drinking from mountain streams, hunting and setting traps for our food. So in April of last year, 2 friends and I departed on a 4-night hiking camping trip on the Appalachian Trail. With loads in excess of 50 pounds, we marched 20 miles into the lush green hills before reaching our first major water source, a long strip of tranquil, clear water set in a picturesque valley. The journey took 2 days with around 18 hours of straight marching. Our packs began digging agonizingly into our shoulders with every step, yet the sense of achievement was intoxicating. Days and nights rolled by as we worked our way along the trail, foraging food as we went. It was tiring, a constant struggle, but the sense of peace that the outdoors can provide is profound. At night, we skewered hot dogs on sticks, wolfing them down as we warmed sweet apple cider in our mess tins over the fire. We listened to owls call out like ghosts and watched embers dancing up in the air like fireflies as our eyelids grew heavy. We had found a fair amount of fruit and fresh water was plentiful, but our attempts at finding protein came short at each turn. We were unable to find any duck eggs, too slow or too inexperienced to snare rabbits, and our improvised fishing rods weren't working as well as we were used to. We were getting desperate, and although we were trying, man cannot live on cereal bars and peanut butter alone. We would have to make a journey to the nearest town, nearly 7 miles away. Needless to say, we got lost. After a few hours of walking, we began to climb a fairly steep hill by means of a shortcut. The whole way up, I remember watching a thick fog cling to the top of the hill, at least 500 meters above us. Only it wasn't exactly clinging. It was just waiting for the temperature to drop low enough for it to roll down onto us, over us, and it did. I remember the image my friend Chris being severely obscured as I walked behind him. We tried to remain cheerful when we started to see the remains of newborn lambs. April is birthing month for sheep, so this isn't necessarily an unusual sight, but these remained completely unscathed. No scavengers had touched these corpses, and there were a lot of them. Needless to say, we were relieved when the outline of a cottage came into view. We had absolutely no idea where we were, and there was no mention of any cottage on our map. My feet ached and our water supplies dwindled, having not expected to be out or lost for such a long time. We decided to stop and ask for directions. We had to climb over a low dry stone wall to reach the building itself, as the cottage was oddly set in the hillside. I noted with grim interest that there was no path leading to or from any kind of road or highway, the dwelling being completely cut off from all human contact. We stopped as we reached the front gate, or what passed as a front gate. It was made of a few roughly cut tree limbs, crudely bound with rusty nails and rotting twine. Chris tried to open it, but there was no hinge. It just fell back into his hands. He set it aside politely, albeit confusedly. The small courtyard before the front door was overgrown with weeds, grass growing long between broken slabs of concrete beneath our feet. Dotted around a smaller front garden was an assortment of curious places. Wait, what? Curios. I don't think I've ever heard of curios. Are those like Cheerios?
Curio.
A rare, unusual, or intriguing object. Oh, okay. They had such fun over the wonderful box of curios that Jack had sent from India. Oh, so they do come in boxes, kind of like Cheerios, but they are not a cereal. Dotted around a smaller front garden was an assortment of curios placed in decorative positions. Things were tied to the branches of a sapling in the center of the haggard lawn, small toy cars, a tennis ball, a hairbrush. A wheelbarrow sat at the foot of it, filthy from exposure, containing a few soggy-looking books, some VHS footage. I wanna hold your hand. I wanna hold your hand. A wheelbarrow sat at the front. Oh, shit. Oh, Southern Cannibal's doing a live stream as well? Well, now is your time to prove your allegiance. No, I'm just kidding. You should open us both up, and we shall compete for your ears. One in one ear, one in the other. A wheelbarrow sat at the foot of it, filthy from exposure, containing a few soggy-looking books, some VHS cassettes, and a children's action figure. They were oddly arranged in a rough circle around the action figure. Arriving nervously at the door, I reached my arm out, feeling it grow heavy as I made a fist. I rapped 3 times, feeling it shake under the force, then waited, listening for signs of life, peering through a small, filthy window to the right of the decrepit door. I could make out yet more assorted, seemingly non-related items scattered on shelves and tables. That's when I turned to Chris. I remember simply remarking that we should move on, that there was no one home. But he didn't respond. There was something about him. He looked pale and confused. I can hardly explain it now that I try to recall it. He'd been looking through the grubby windows as I'd been knocking on the door and had gotten a much better look inside the house. It was almost like he had seen something, but just couldn't explain what. He began shaking his head violently, hyperventilating as he rushed out of the little courtyard. I was confused, a little frightened, and began shouting after him, asking just why he was acting so strange. Yeah, the little cottage was weird, but he was acting like he'd seen a ghost. He only replied to me once through gritted teeth. "We need to leave now." Later that night, while we were nursing beers around our campfire, I finally plucked up the courage to ask him what he'd seen through the window. He started shaking his head in that same weird way, stuttering as he tried to find the words to articulate himself. He went on to explain that someone had been in that cottage the whole time, hiding from us. That as I'd been banging away trying to get their attention, that they'd taken one solitary look outside at us, right into my buddy's eyes. My buddy said that he had never seen anyone so messed up, that he couldn't tell if they were disabled or they had just been beaten so badly that their face had been rearranged. He said that when they locked eyes, the figure on the other side of the glass had looked terrified, but there's no way that they could have been surviving alone up there. Something else was living there too, something that might have been heading back to us to arrive at any moment. I thank God we didn't find out what it was. It was Leatherface. Oh, ha 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 ha. Oh. Jamie, you're right. Who cares what people think? Yeah, I did feel that when I was in, LA. There was a certain sense of pretension, I guess, about the people, to a mild degree, not entirely, not as much as New York City, but like a certain sense of judgment that you could feel kind of emanating from people. I know that sounds odd, but it was nice because I felt like even in that short period of time, whatever it is that I felt seems to translate back home here, where I don't, I used to go around town and you kind of have a sense of insecurity about you at all times, maybe to a certain degree, I'm not really sure, but I kind of just didn't care what people thought, and I still don't really care what people thought or think, what the thoughts think. And it feels good. It feels good not to care. It feels good to feel careless. Alright, so this is the last story of the night. Oh yeah, thank you, Gothic. Gothic is linking my Patreon, so if you guys want to hear this audio edited into a kind of a full-on video style audio, and download the MP3, I usually post that first to. If I usually post that first to Patreon, and it's only $1 a month, or however much you want to donate per month to support the channel, and you get that audio in early access. Jay Wilson, you can't send a super chat. That's okay. I'm not really sure. Some people had that trouble. I don't know if it might be country based or I don't know. Sometimes people just have like issues with it. Okay. Oh man, last story and I am tuckered out. At least once a year, my stepdad's family has a little camping trip get-together down in South Carolina. My mom has been married to him for about 6 years now, so I've had the opportunity to attend a handful of them when my job permits me to do so. The first trip I attended was right after Mom and my stepdad got married. Alone with my little brother, we loaded up my stepdad's truck with camping gear and made the 9-hour drive from our home in Pittsburgh down to his native South Carolina. We had just passed the state line into West Virginia when we first stopped for gas. All of us piled out of the truck to stretch our legs and use the bathroom. While my stepdad handed down an elderly attendant a few bucks to get us filled up, I finished up in the bathroom, then headed back to the truck when I got into a little conversation with the elderly attendant. He seemed nice enough at first, asking where we were headed, how long for, that sort of thing. But when I mentioned that we were camping, his mood seemed to shift. You know, you should always be respectful in nature. It can be unforgiving, he explained. Don't mess with the animals. Don't leave nothing but your boot prints. Any mess and, well, the woods have a way of letting you know you're not welcome. I assured him we had the utmost respect for nature and we wouldn't be leaving any trash around when we left, but this didn't seem to change his demeanor at all. He finished pumping our gas and went back to his chair without a word. Several hours later, we were well into South Carolina when we made a final rest stop before the campgrounds. It was basically a wildlife preserve that was also a truck stop, complete with a little information board that told us about the local flora and fauna. But something caught my eye in the bottom corner of the board. Carved into the white plastic were just 2 words. Respect. Nature. Those were the words the gas station attendant had said to me. It was weird, sure, but it had to be coincidence. The same words, yeah, but hundreds of miles apart. There was no way it could be the same guy. I mean, that stuff only happens in dumb horror movies. Naturally, I didn't bother mentioning this to my mom or stepdad. I mean, why would I? I'd have seemed crazy. I would have been crazy to think that there was some connection between the gas attendant and the scrawled message. So we just got back in the truck and pushed on towards the campground. Upon arrival, we say hello to the extended family. A little round robin of hugs and handshakes, then get to work putting up the large, luxury glamping tent that we'd been sleeping in. Once we're done there, we head back and hang out with the family and fill up on barbecue. My stepdad's entire family was just as delightful as he was, and I feel like at this point I should add that my stepdad was a far better parent than our biological dad. So aside from the initial period of them dating, I was glad my mom had found someone so good for her. After an evening around the fire, singing old songs with my step-uncle on the guitar, we headed back to our tents to get some sleep. But on arrival, we see something lying in the grass just near the entrance. It was a dead bird. My little brother starts freaking out. The thing was starting to decompose, and a huge collective ew echoed through the trees when the smell hit us. My stepdad calmed us down, saying something about my little brother's car farts smelling way worse, then proceeds to get rid of the thing as we get ready for bed. but I watched him in the light of his own torch as he used a stick to get the feathery little cadaver away from our campground. He knelt down into the dirt and pulled something from under the bird's rotten wing, something that looked like a note. When I asked him about it, he brushed the question off like he hadn't found anything. I would have followed up with more questions, but when I saw the look in his eyes, I decided against it. He was spooked, like seriously spooked. The next morning, some of the other family members mentioned hearing footsteps outside their tent during the day. They were asking around, trying to find out who went on a walkabout, if we had any sleepwalkers in the group who might be the ones responsible. But to no avail. No one would admit to being the one out of their tent so late. That's when the atmosphere started to get a little uneasy. The second night was a little less eventful. There were no footsteps outside anyone's tents, but I did hear something that meant I hardly got any sleep at all. In the dead of night, I could hear my little brother's voice across the tent. At first I figured he was reading aloud, as was common when he was that age, but there was no torchlight, so he didn't have a book. I strained... Shay L, do you have Joel's group Discord? Yeah, maybe one of the Gothics here. She can link that if she gets a chance. Thank you, Gothic. At first I figured he was reading aloud, as was common when he was that age. But there was no flashlight, so he didn't have a book. I strained my eyes and ears trying to make out what he was whispering. I thought I was going crazy when I finally made out the words. There was no way he was saying what I thought he was saying, but he was. He was reciting the information that was present on the wildlife board back at the rest stop we hit when we got into South Carolina. It sounded like he was reeling it off, word for word, like he was using all these big words that I knew my little brother didn't know off the top of his head. He eventually stopped, but I was so freaked out that I just couldn't manage to get any decent sleep. I woke up exhausted to the sound of my stepdad's voice. He sounded unusually stern when I stepped outside into the campground, and I saw why. Everyone was packing their stuff up and piling it into their various vehicles. We were due to stay another couple of nights at least, but the mood was tense. People weren't speaking to each other as they quickly packed up their gear. My stepdad asked me to help out getting packed up, and to do so as quickly as possible. The look in his eyes told me not to ask questions. We were back on the road to Pennsylvania by noon. I was so glad to be out of there that I managed to keep my mouth shut all the way back home. I needed to know just what had happened to freak everyone out so much. I also needed to ask him what he'd pulled off of that dead bird on the first night, but the timing needed to be right. We got home in the late evening, so late that my stepdad had to carry my sleeping brother from the car and right up to the bed. After some late supper, I managed to catch him alone in front of the TV. He knew what I wanted to ask before I'd even spoke. There'd been a note on the dead bird, just as I'd expected. He told me it had said, "Go home," but had figured it was either a prank by local teenagers or one of his cousins who'd resented that he'd left the Carolinas for the Yankee North, so he'd ignored it. I asked him if he'd heard my little brother sleep-talking, but when he shot me a confused look, I knew he hadn't heard it himself. But he did go on to explain what had gotten the family so freaked out that they'd chosen to flee the campground. The cousin who he'd suspected of the first note had woken up at dawn with a full bladder of beer. Sorry. The cousin who he suspected of the first note had woken up at dawn with a bladder full of beer. Sleepy-eyed, he shuffled out of his tent, peed, and then headed back a little more awake. That's when he noticed the dead deer laying near the fire pit. Someone had left it as a message. He woke up my stepdad and got him to move the deer before anyone else woke up and freaked out. Soon as that was done, they woke their families up and got everyone moving. But then Shit. But that's not the worst part. My stepdad explained that whoever had left the dead deer had carved something into its flesh. They must have cut into the deer while it was still alive, as he said the letters were formed more out of clotted blood than open gashes. He said it was just 2 words, 2 little words. I asked him what they said. He sighed, unable to bring himself to look at me in the eyes. "Final warning," he replied. Dun dun dun. Full bladder of beer. Yeah. Oh boy, I am tired. Alright, maybe. Crap. Is this the. Yes. Yes, yes. Alright, guys, we have reached the end of the stories, but I am still here to BS with you guys for a little bit. If you have any questions about VidCon or anything of that nature, be sure to respect the woods. If you don't, I will carve into a deer and leave it outside your cabin. Don't even think about eating that deer. Final warning. You want me to say final warning at the end of this video? No, that might be a little too spooky. Please read the story from Storytime. Storytime. Let me check. So there's in our Discord we have a channel called Storytime. Oh, did you want me to read the story about the dog and my Disney experiences? Because I already told those to everybody earlier in the stram. Don't be a bad booch. What do I think of B Buster? B Buster's great. I think he's a talented narrator man and a good family man as well. I like the Aussie accent. I like Lazy Masquerade's UK accent. I love accents. I think they're a nice change up to things. Natalia says, no, we're gonna have to be more specific. Naruto runners in the front should be the ending words. Maybe I can say, see you guys at Area 51. That's probably what I'll say. Let me just record that real quick, and then Natalia, if you want to tell me what story you're referring to. Hey friends, thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe and click that notification bell to be alerted of all future narrations. If you got a story, be sure to... God damn it. If you got a story, be sure to submit them to my subreddit, r Let's Read Official, and give and receive feedback from the community, and maybe even hear your story featured on the next video. And join my Discord to interact with me and other listeners directly. And if you want to support me even more, grab early access to all future narrations for just $1 a month on Patreon, and maybe even pick up some Let's Read merch on Spreadshirt. You know what I should add? I need to add something about the podcast. And if you love, and if you love podcasts, be sure to check. Yeah, I'll say something about that. And if you love podcasts, be sure to. Everything's be sure. You gotta be absolutely sure. And if you love podcasts, be sure to and if you can't get enough of these, if you love long compilations, or if you love longer videos, be sure to check out my podcast, the Let's Read podcast, available on both Spotify and Apple Podcasts. There, yeah, fuck it. That's what we'll say. Mia, you don't have podcasting abilities? I think everybody does. You just have to download Apple Podcasts or Spotify and look me up. Look me up, home girl or boy. Hey friends, thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe and click that notification bell to be alerted of all future narrations. If you got a story, be sure to submit them to my subreddit, or Let's Read Official, and give and receive feedback from the community, and maybe even hear your story featured in the next video. And join my Discord to interact with me and other listeners directly. And if you want to support me even more, grab early access to all future narrations for just $1 a month on Patreon, and maybe even pick up some Let's Read merch on Spreadshirt. And if you love longer videos, be sure to check out my podcast, the Let's Read podcast, available on both Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Links in the bio. Thanks so much, friends, and I'll see you again soon. Oh, wait, I was going to say about Area 51, my bad. And I'll see you at Area 51. I guess I'll need to type that up. Thanks so much, friends, and I'll see you at Area 51. Alright, Natalia, what? Okay, she says scroll up in story time. Okay. Doing that. So, I've already said about the stories in Disney. Is this something that you posted? Because you're going to have to be more specific to what we're talking about. Yeah, I don't really understand. It says scroll up, but there's like 100 stories and while I scroll up, so it's not like specific, you know what I'm saying? See you at Area 51. Dude, we're storming Area 51. Okay, Tara Shoes posted. Okay, thank you. Y'all know what? React to this comment with laugh if you think Joel should be harassed to read this at the end of a stream just for the giggles. Okay, so there it is. Alright, I'm reading it for the giggles, guys. If it gets to be too much, we will stop. I'm doing it for the lols. All in all, it had to be a good day. Bad traffic, a malfunctioning computer, incompetent workers, and a sore back all made me a seething cauldron of rage. But more importantly for this story, it had been over 48 hours since I'd last taken a dump. I tried to jumpstart the process, beginning my day with a bowl of fibrous cereal, following it with 6 cups of coffee at work, and adding a lunch at Taco Bell. As I was returning home from work, my insides let me know with subtle rumbles and the emissions of the occasional tiny fart that big things would be happening soon. Alas, I had to stop at the mall to pick up an order for my fiancée. I completed this task, and as I was walking past the stores on my way back to the car, I noticed a large sales sign proclaiming, "Everything must go." This was prophetic, for my colon informed me with a sudden violent cramp and a wet squeaky fart that everything was indeed about to go. I hurried to the mall bathrooms, surveyed the 5 stalls, which I have numbered 0 through 4 for convenience. 0 occupied, 1 clean, but bathroom protocol forbids its use as it's next to the occupied one. Poo on seat. 3. Poo and toilet paper in bowl, unidentifiable liquid splattered on seat. 4. No toilet paper, no stall door, unidentifiable sticky object near base of toilet. Clearly, it had to be stall 1. I trudged back, entered, dropped trowel, and sat down. I'm normally a fairly shameful shitter. I wasn't happy about being next to the occupied stall, but big things were afoot and I was getting ready to bear down when all of a sudden the sweet sounds of Beethoven came from next door, followed by a fumbling and then the sound of a voice answering the ringtone. As usual for a cell phone conversation, the voice was exactly 8 decibels louder than it needed to be. Out of shameful habit, my sphincter slammed shut. The inane conversation went on, and on Mr. Shitter was blathering to Mrs. Shitter about the shatty day he had. I sat cramping and miserable, waiting for him to finish. As the loud conversation dragged on, I got angrier and angrier, thinking that I too had a crappy day and I was too polite to yak about in public. My bowels let me know in no uncertain terms that if I didn't get crapping soon, my day would be getting even crappier. Finally, my anger reached a point that overcame shamefulness. I no longer cared. I gripped the toilet paper holder with one hand, braced my other hand against the side of the stall, and pushed with all my might. I was rewarded with a fart of colossal magnitude, a cross between the sound of someone ripping a very wet bed sheet in half and of plywood being torn off the wall. The sound gradually transitioned into a heavily modulated tone, not unlike someone firing up a Harley. I managed to hit the resonance frequency of the stall, and it shook gently. One of my ass cheeks stopped flapping in the breeze. 3 things became apparent. 1. The conversation had ceased. 2. My colon's continued seizing indicated that there was more to come. 3. The bathroom was now beset by a horrible, eldritch stench. It was as if a gateway to hell had been opened. The foul miasma quickly made its way under the stall and began choking my poop mate. This initial herald fart had ended his conversation mid-sentence. "Oh my God," I heard him utter, following it with suppressed sounds of choking, and then, "No, baby, that wasn't me. You hear that?" No, there was no stopping me. I pushed for all I was worth. I could swear that in the resulting cacophony of rips, squirts, splashes, poots, and blasts, I was actually lifted slightly off the pot. The amount of stuff in me was incredible. It sprayed against the bowl with tremendous force. Later, in surveying the damage, I'd see that liquid poop had actually managed to ricochet out of the bowl and run down the side onto the floor. But for now, all I could do was hang on for the ride. Oh my God. Next door, I could hear him fumbling with the paper dispenser as he desperately tried to finish his task. Little snatches of conversation made themselves heard over the symphony. "Gotta go. Horrible. Throw up." Followed by more sounds of suppressed gagging and retching. Alas, it is evidently difficult to hold one's phone and wipe one's bum at the same time. Just as my abuse of the toilet was winding down, I heard a plop and splash from next door, followed by a string of swear words and gags. My poop mate had dropped his phone into the toilet. There was a lull in my production, and the restroom became deathly quiet. I could envision him standing there, wondering what to do. A final announcement came trumpeting from my behind, small chunks plopping noisily into the water. That must have been the last straw. I heard a flush, a fumbling with the lock, and then the stall door was thrown open. I heard him running out of the bathroom, slamming the door behind him. After a considerable amount of paperwork, I got up and surveyed the damage. I felt bad for the janitor who'd been forced to deal with this, but I knew that flushing was not an option. No toilet in the world could handle that unholy mess. Flushing would only add to a floor flooded with filth. As I left, I glanced into the stall. Nothing remained in the bowl. Had he flushed his phone, or had he plucked it out and left the bathroom with nasty unwashed hands? The world will never know. I exited the bathroom momentarily proud and shameless, looking around for a face glaring at me. But I saw no one. I suspect that somehow my supernatural elimination had managed to transfer my shamefulness to my anonymous poop mate. I think it will be a long time before he can bring himself to poop in public, and I doubt he'll ever again answer his cell phone in the loo. And this, my friends, is why you should never talk on your phone in the bathroom. Holy hell, that was a good one. It's days like that, or stories like that, that make me want to make one of those like animation story times, like the animatics and stuff, like Jaden and stuff like that, because like, why do those not exist? Like, why don't scary story animation type stories with animatics exist, and why don't like hilarious comedic story channels like that exist? And if anyone knows any like capable artists who are good at like making like similar stuff to like animatics and that kind of thing that would go well with like, 7 to 10 minute or like 5 to 10 minute stories, I would love to start putting out like animatics and stuff with some of the stories like at least once a month. And I feel like if they're just still frames, expressing a story, it would be relatively easy to do, similar to those other channels. But alas, I must come across a designated animator. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for being here. And thank you so much for all your kind donations and just the general support while I was away at VidCon, and now that I'm back. It's honestly amazing to have the support that I see from you guys all the time. Hopefully one day we all can meet up some point at some conference of sorts. I think YouTube might be having their own conference separate from VidCon in the future, so we'll see about that. Yeah, believe me, Llama Arts is great, but I mean, Llama Arts is also huge. So like for me to like just text Llama Arts like, "Hey, you've never answered any of my other messages, but I've got a story for you about shit and poop, and I need you to animate it." So anybody much smaller than that would probably be a lot more open to participating in projects like that. So let me know. But yeah, guys, love ya. Appreciate the constant support. Seriously, been awesome. Been an awesome night. I'm going to get my AC on and drink some water because it is hot. Llama farts. Oh my god, that's perfect. That is perfect. But I hope you guys have a great night, and join the Discord if you want to keep chatting with the community like you have here and share your own stories and all that kind of stuff. Hey, Venikins with the 2 says, "Yo, Joel, long time. Hope you and Pradeep are well." Thank you for the 2, Venikins, but I feel bad you're catching me right at the tail end, so that dang old YouTube may not have told everyone what I was up to. But yeah, shout out to you, Transformers, Legos, and more. I too had a toy channel at one time, unless that's just your general interest. But yeah, be safe, everybody. Sleep well. Join Discord. And yes, Jay Wilson, I've ever seen the Boondocks. I love the Boondocks. I was talking about the Boondocks during my trip in VidCon with some people, and that is, I have all the DVDs for it. Not the Boondock Saints, but the Boondocks animated show. It fucking rules. I love that show. And it's like a type of comedy that I'm not sure will be brought back into the limelight like it was, like, the Boondocks, Chappelle's Show, various others. I miss it a lot. Anyways, peace out, Girl Scout. Don't let the bed bugs out.